Sister!
Sister!
I'm not okay.
Oh, no, not at all.
I have a lot of feelings about this, but before we get into this insane case, we said that we would tell people a while back why we say sisters the way that we do. So I feel like we should give a little story. You ready?
Sure.
Do you remember?
So I have a story, but I don't know if it's the same one. Because I was a small child when we started, so...
Well, what do you remember?
We started calling each other sister because of sister.
Yeah, and
okay,
then like...
Okay.
So
we
that
do
was
have the same STEM memory.
And everyone remembers that show, right? Because we've all been rewatching it on Netflix now. But originally, Audie and I, I would watch Sister, and then it became this thing. That's how we would call each other from across the house.
I hated the show.
Yeah, you weren't about the show. I still
hated
rewatch the show. But I just started doing it, and I would be like, sister! And then Audie would be like, sister! To let me know what room she was in, and that's how we would find each other. And we kept doing it all the way through doing drama club and stuff together. I remember when we did Grease, that cast over the summer, we would yell like, sister! Backstage and stuff to find each other. And then other people told us, like, we want to be in on this joke. Like, we want to say it, but we're not a sister.
So they just started saying our names in that tone.
Devin!
Audie!
And that became a thing throughout the whole cast of Grease all summer, and that's one of my favorite memories of that cast. So yeah, that's kind of how Sisters started, and that's what we are in each other's phones. We've always said Sisters. We were kind of upset that we didn't think to put 4 A's because we have there's 4 girls all together.
I'm so mad now.
Did you never think of that?
No.
I thought we talked about this.
No.
I've been upset that we didn't think about this.
Okay, so Devin has this habit where she will make these little plans or diagrams or I don't know what goes on in your brain because it's beautiful, but I can't get in there. Like mine is a little chaotic mess and yours is filed and organized. And she will just make these plans without letting you know. And so I'll be in the car with her and originally we'll be going to Walmart. And all of a sudden, we're halfway across town in Plato's Closet. I'm like, how did we get here? And she said, oh, well, I had this plan for A, B, and C. And I said, well, when are you going to tell me that?
I forget.
She said, well, I thought I already did.
I do that. I do. I guess this was one of those things. But yeah, I wish we had 4 A's because there's 4 of us. But anyway, yeah. So shout out to our 2 older sisters, Nadi and Sierra. We love you guys. We love your guts. And that is kind of, in summary, why we say sisters. And we know it's kind of lame, but we've done it ever since we were kids. And I hope we never stop doing it. I want to be like across the nursing home yelling like, sister!
Oh, in a nursing home.
No, we're going to go crazy in a cabin together.
Yeah.
Let's go down with a fight.
Yeah. We're either going to be serial killers or be hunted by them.
Edit out.
As soon as we got the name, the logo instantly popped in my head, and I ran home and started working on it nonstop for the next week and went a little crazy.
She did. I didn't really hear from her. Every time I did call her, she was working on the logo. And yeah, we're so excited to have this podcast and have this bonding experience over kind of a weird hobby. Not going to say it's the most normal. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. So Audie, do you want to tell us who we're talking about today?
Well, speaking of families.
Oh, God.
We are talking about the List family murders.
I just got so mad all over again.
The only thing, so, this is a Forensic Files episode. This is the first time that we are not...
Don't watch it.
I don't want to shit on Forensic Files, because they're absolutely fantastic. I love Forensic Files, but
this one...
Well, you have to remember, this is season 1 Forensic Files.
You were on a low budget, I get it.
Yeah, not the best acting.
Don't judge someone on their past.
Doesn't get the full story across, but that is what we watch, so we're going to take our story based on the story that they tell us. They start off the episode with the camera opening up to a church, and all I have is the wigs. Just, there's no lace front in sight. They're so bad. I want to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. You're going to be fine listening to it, but if you did go and watch the Forensic Files episode, they show graphic crime scene photos.
It's just dead bodies, the whole documentary.
Pretty much. So please be warned of that. I wanted to let people know if you're sensitive to those kinds of things. Obviously, you're not going to see anything in a podcast, but...
Well, and that's kind of the beautiful thing about this podcast is you don't have to watch the terrible things. We'll do it for you. Mm-hmm. We'll tell you about them.
Imagine we're calling you on FaceTime and just need to tell you about this insane documentary we watched.
John List was an American mass murderer and longtime fugitive. On November 9th, 1971, List killed his family, his entire immediate family. He planned this so meticulously that nearly a month passed before anyone knew what he had done.
That's it.
Crazy.
Yeah, totally crazy.
I hate this case. I hate John. I hate this episode. It's just literally dead body pictures and a couple scenes about how dope forensic sculpturing is.
Yeah, if you're really into forensic sculpturing, then, and like forensic art, which I am, so I thought it was super cool.
Well, then great. There's a solid 5 minutes for you.
Well, we'll start on a happier note. So, well, not happy.
No, it's not. There's no happy note here. Can we just already, because his name is John Email List, and it looks like email list, and I read it as John Email List every single time.
I didn't even catch that, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
That with us.
Spoiler alert, guys. John List is that asshole that volunteered at the Lutheran church and taught Sunday school and then murdered his whole family. Mm-hmm. So cool. So can we go home now? Can we just go home now? Because this episode sucked.
That's all that you need to know about him. And he was 46 years old. He was also an accountant. So, but not like the cool nowadays accountants, like an actual accountant.
What is the difference?
You know what a fake accountant is nowadays.
No.
You don't know what a fake accountant is?
Is this like the like you say you're an accountant because you're a stripper?
Yeah, or like a porn star.
Like the TikTok. This is the only reason I know that is
yes, it is a TikTok
I'm an accountant. Say you're an accountant. No one gives a shit when you say you're an accountant. Yes, that's the only reason I would know that.
He's an actual accountant, not a sexy one. Nor would I want him to be. So we meet his wife Helen, or we don't meet her.
Yeah, there's no one to meet. Everyone's fucking dead.
So him and his wife, Helen List, had been married for almost 20 years. Can you imagine after not only being married, but I mean, there had to be some sort of dating process. We'll at the most give it or at the least give it 2 years, we'll be reasonable. Maybe they moved quickly. But you're just really going to look at this person after 20 years and be like, yeah, I'm done. And I don't want a divorce. I don't want to deal with any of that.
I want to kill you.
I'm going to fucking murder you.
Well, we'll get into why. We get a backside kind of a little bit about his psychological makeup and find out some of his bullshit reasoning.
But it's not justified.
No, he's soggy cereal up and down. He's like moldy cereal.
Mm-hmm. So they had 3 children together. 16-year-old Patricia.
15-year-old John.
And 13-year-old Freddie.
John's mother, Alma, also lived in the home on the 3rd floor apartment.
Also, I have that the children went to school locally and, in the narrator's words, were active and popular.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
It was weird how the narrator was saying it. And also, they looked like totally normal kids. They don't look like, I guess, what was in my head.
So, guys, we really can't say this enough. It's literally just pictures of dead bodies, but they kind of jump right into it because it's a little bit more about finding him in the case. Neighbors hadn't seen any activity in weeks in the home, and because lights are burning out one by one, a neighbor calls the cops. Cops enter the home, and, you smell it, right? You have to smell it.
I don't know what happened. They never say how the neighbors know this information, but they say that that the family was going to visit a sick relative, and somehow people knew that. So I guess Robert had said something about it to people. Wait,
so I did a Goog, and I actually wrote all of this down.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I did a bunch of side Googs, guys. This documentary isn't great. Again, this is the beginning of their shit, but...
And it's an episode. It's not a full documentary.
Right. It was a short episode, so I did a bunch of side Googing. I don't even need to read this. I know it. It's so fucking crazy. I don't even need to read my notes because it's burned in my mind forever. Okay. So the lights started going off one by one.
That's so creepy.
In the house, okay? So the neighbor called the cops, and the cops showed up this first time. They don't say this in the documentary. This is all side Googing. Okay. The cops are going around the house, and they're like, it doesn't seem like anything's weird. It just seems like they're on an extended vacation, which wasn't weird for the family.
Okay.
He had also, again, not in the documentary, sent notes from each child saying that they would be on an extended visit to their mother's mother, their grandmother, because she was sick. And she was sick. She had canceled her trip this week, and if she had gone, would have been the 6th victim. Another crazy thing, the cops never went in the house when the cops called. It wasn't until Patricia's drama teacher showed up to the house a month later after not hearing anything from Patricia being in the show. Starts banging on the door, calls the cops, and then convinces the cops. So it's really all the drama teacher. Let's clap for the drama clubs.
You are dry, cereal.
You are dry cereal. You are Captain Crunch, my friend.
Oh,
I love
I mean,
Captain. I thought you were dissing Captain Crunch. I said no, not the Captain.
I was like, but I'm figuring out what our cereal scale is.
Oh, well, I like Lucky Charms, but they're not vegan, so I had to give it up.
You act like any cereal is vegan.
It's hard. So anyway, back to the drama club. So the drama teacher convinces them to go in this window that led into the basement, and that's where they find their evidence. We'll get there.
Well, that's when they get into the house.
Yes.
Noah lives in the basement. So
we'll go back. Again, that none of that was in the documentary.
So it's 1971. The house is empty, and the family had gone away. The documentary says that neighbors decided to call the cops, but as Devin just told us, that's a lie. So we meet Charles Haller, who is a part of the Westfield Police Department. This is the only time that we meet him. Only time we talk to him. His one line. They asked us to check the house, which we did.
He did. He did
Nothing
say
else.
that.
That is the only thing that he was good for. And it's so matter of fact, like, I just want you to know.
We checked the house.
I checked that house.
Because they didn't check it till the fucking second time. He left that part out.
But that's what so I'm thinking that maybe they had a lot more footage or a lot more of the story and they just had to, like, chop it down a lot because your story fits the way he was describing it.
That makes sense. And then, guys, they get into the house. Not only do they find basically the List family morgue, there's classical music playing.
And it's extremely cold.
It's super cold because he turned the thermostat down to slow down the decaying process of the bodies.
Yeah, which we find out later. It's disgusting.
So you guys are kind of figuring out what happened, obviously.
One of the police officers did state that the officers on duty were extremely disturbed and creeped out by the classical music playing as they walked into this house and they slowly start smelling the blood.
They start smelling bodies and ugh.
And also, I have, for a timestamp, because I don't know if you saw this, but at 2 minutes 43 seconds, what am I looking at? It's not a body. It's literally like this black hallway in like this weird white shape.
I didn't see that.
It's literally up for like a second. I don't know what I'm looking at.
I don't want to see it again.
I have no idea what
I saw too many people shot in the head.
It's not a person, but like I was pausing on every picture and looking in the background. Ooh, I found some things.
You are braver than me. I didn't want to see it.
I am. I was not home alone doing this.
So they're finding, not only do they find the bodies, guys, they find just trash cans full of blood-soaked paper towels. There's a bloody mop. He'd cleaned it up a good bit. He took out all of his own photos in the photo frames and everything, and I didn't get that at first. I thought it was like his weird mourning process. I didn't realize he was trying not to get caught.
Yeah.
He didn't want any recent photos of him. So went through the whole entire house with like dead bodies around, cutting himself, taking himself out of every picture. At this part, Audie, my note is, again, this is like my fifth note. I'm so tired of seeing dead bodies. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, watching you. So, like, we'll sit on FaceTime on mute and just be with each other while watching these. We don't hear what each other's reactions
because
are.
we're that obsessed with each other.
Exactly. But you can just see each other's faces. And I'll be like, you got to that part? Yep. Super creepy. Find all of the victims up side by side, neatly on top of sleeping bags. I'm guessing to soak up the blood?
Because he used the sleeping bags to drag them.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, dog.
Oh.
This isn't my first documentary. Audie's letting it sink in. I just saw it resonate in her face. Okay, guys, so now we're going to get into a little bit about what his, I don't even want to say reasoning, because it's not a fucking reason to mass murder your family, but a little bit about what was going on in John's life. He had recently lost a banking job and was struggling. He didn't really know how to provide for his family. Again, they don't go over this. I did some side Googling. He was like one of the heads of his banking company and then got laid off. And was going to have to go on welfare and asked all of the kids to pick up part-time jobs and was saying that he needed them to learn responsibility, but really is that he needed help paying the bills. Mm-hmm. So he told the court-appointed psychiatrist later that he did it because, well, this wasn't the reason, but he tells them this, that he didn't want the family to go on welfare because it would go against his religion, because that would mean that he wasn't providing and was putting his family up for shame in the community. So he either had to mass murder his family or go on welfare.
So he committed all these murders in the kitchen and then dragged their bodies to the ballroom. So that also just lets you know, like, this family was up there. You have a fucking ballroom.
Yeah, it was a really nice house.
In 1970s, you have a ballroom, you know, not just anybody. Also, they show a picture of a bloody mop, but where is that mop?
It looks like it was, like, in a bathtub.
I was like, is that in, like, a bathtub? Is that
I don't need to know.
What is that?
So then there's this bullshit about how John thought his family was straying away from the church and that eventually they would stop going to church and leave the religion altogether. His daughter wanted to be an actress and he thought that was too worldly in his mind. Basically, he thought that he could give them this one-way ticket to heaven if he was responsible for shipping them there himself.
Mm-hmm. On the 3rd floor, they find a 5th body, 84-year-old Alma List. All these victims had been shot point blank in the head, which is terrifying. Because you just have to think, like, how close you have to be to a person to do that, like, physically. So, in the den, police found 2 guns and a letter addressed to the pastor of the local church. But basically, the letter was just a full-on confession and an explanation on why he was doing this.
Which, again, side goog, I found out he gave some bullshit thing in court, Audie, where he was, like, trying to say, or his lawyer was trying to say, whatever, that the letter was a religious confession so that it couldn't be, like, it couldn't go to court. And the judge was like, nah, bitch.
No, that's not a religious confession.
It was ridiculous. Like, when I was reading it, I don't know how much of that is true. It was just a side goog, but it was, yeah.
I mean, I could see them fighting for that because he technically wrote it to the pastor. But no.
But crazy. All right, so then we find out, the documentary tells us at this point that it took John longer to die.
The middle son.
Let me tell you why, bitches. They don't tell you this in the documentary. They just say that it took him longer to die. So John shot his wife Helen in the back of the head, then his mother above the eye. Then, as Patricia and Freddie got home from school, he shot them in the back of the head. Then he made himself lunch.
Ew. Ew.
You have dead bodies everywhere and you're making yourself lunch. You just murdered your family.
That's terrifying, but do you know what's also terrifying? So this is in proper order. So think about the fact that the mother died first and the grandma is sitting on the 3rd floor hearing the gunshot, hearing the footsteps coming up to her.
Holy shit.
Just slowly hearing someone coming up 2 flights of stairs. You're not expecting it to be your son, I would guess.
Holy shit, I didn't even think about Alma's point of view.
It says she was shot right above the eye, which means he was looking right at her. And he shot everyone else right point blank in the head. That means he hesitated. Or he did something to where he wasn't fully comfortable. Something happened. Or maybe it's because she could see it, she moved, who knows.
When he had no fucking remorse, obviously. I mean, you're in a house with 4 dead bodies, and you made yourself lunch.
Yeah, your wife, your 2 kids, and your own mother.
This is when we're past soggy cereal. We are at moldy cereal. Like, dorm room cereal.
Oh, no, we're at depression room. That's where we are.
Depression bed?
Depression bed. Like, he's the bowl that's under the bed.
Damn.
That gets pushed under there by mistake. And you're like 3 years down the road in depression. You find that bowl and you refuse to even clean it. You just throw it out.
Here's where it gets worse, Audie. Let me tell you why. Because after he makes himself lunch, he goes to the bank and closes out his and Alma's accounts. Then goes to John's high school and watches his son's soccer game.
Nope.
Then drives John home. And that's all they say is that it took him longer. In my mind, let me tell you where I'm at. I'm like, he literally took John in there and saw his murdered family and John tried to get away. I don't know if maybe he tried to convince John to come with him or like start a new life, like he was going to take one of them, because we know how some serial killers will do that. And then John tried to fight it, and so he shot him. And then that, like, he was angry, and that's why he shot him 10 times. My mind, Audie, I can't handle it.
To me, it almost sounds like it could be that. It could be... It does sound like he took him home with the intention of, like, not killing him and just seeing if he'd be kind of chill with this. So I don't know what their relationship was. I don't know if, like, they were the closest out of all the kids, you know. But it definitely sounds like as maybe he tried to leave and that was just him freaking out. And, like, oh, he's going to get away. He's going to say something. I just have to make sure he's done for.
Oof. I hate it. I can't.
Yeah, no, it's not. Ugh.
In his last moments with his family, he says that he said some prayers because it was the least he could do. You know what the least you could do is not murder everybody.
Also, prayers from a hymn. Like, you couldn't even make up your own.
This is when the neighbors tell us that he was a freak with no friends.
Right?
They find his car at JFK Airport in New York. The date said November 10th, but there was no evidence that he had ever taken a flight. But wherever he is, he's a month ahead of any detective.
He had a parking ticket on his car that was for November 10th, which was, a month later. So they fully knew that he dipped, day of.
A ballistic report confirms that the guns found in the den during the original investigation, where they walked in through the basement window, those were in fact the ones used. The FBI thought that he might have committed suicide after this homicide, but they keep his story alive for 18 years through the media. They call the newspaper every 5, 6, or 10 years, just on the anniversary of things, trying to run a story or run something in the paper, just to keep it going.
Yeah, and this was, when it first happened, this was a high-profile case. They said that every police department all across America was looking for him. I mean, everybody knew about it, This wasn't a small-town case. Everyone was looking for this man, and it slowly just died out, and no one was finding him.
Right.
So, we're 18 years later now, and the detectives decide they finally have an idea. They decide that they are going to try and put his face on America's Most Wanted.
Because they're, all sitting around watching America's Most Wanted, of course. And then he's like, dude, you know what we should tell them about?
But it's super cool. We actually meet the head of the TV show, I guess. The head of the TV channel, show.
That runs Forensic Files?
No, not Forensic Files. The one that runs America's
Most
Wanted.
Right.
The guy that runs America's Most Wanted. And he comes out and he's just like, well, we realized this was a guy that really needed to be caught. We don't care how old it is. And I'm like, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've run into a problem.
The problem was, at the end of each episode, a photo of the wanted person comes up, but our recent photo was taken years before the murder, because remember how I told you he cut himself out of any pictures? He made sure there was no recent photos of him when he left after the murder. So now we spend a lot of time talking about forensic sculpting, and I'm kind of here for it. It was super cool.
So I want to give credit to Frank Bender, who is the artist that helped them, and he is absolutely incredible. He's an incredible sculptor. You'll hear throughout all of this. He's completely insane. Please, if you take nothing else from this episode, go check him out. He has an Instagram page, and he does amazing work.
Well, and he's 100% to give credit why we found him.
Yeah, he's the whole reason why this works. So essentially, what he does, facial sculptures based off of the human skull. So there's ways that you can look at a skull, and it's just crazy how his brain works with these things, where you can tell how much a certain bone protrudes to where when the muscles and skin would lay over it, how that
how it would
face
look.
Would work and look. And so he takes into account not only their face, what the bone structure would look like, but he's taking into account their emotions and how that person felt and how that would change their facial structure
over time.
Mm-hmm. And he's even saying, he's taking examples we have all these computers nowadays that sure can throw what someone 20 years later will look like, but it just throws on a random few wrinkles. It's not taking into account the genetics, the gender, the race, skin tone, all these different things that are really important to be able to figure out what you would look like at that age.
Then we start finding out how much psychology he uses to shape these faces, like someone that, in John's case, is having a lot of anxiety because you just mass murdered your entire family and ran away and tried to start a new life under the name of Bob Clark. So I feel like that would weigh on a person, and he created all of these lines on someone's face, and it's crazy, guys. Well, in that picture of John List getting caught next to the sculpture, it's crazy. They ran that on the front of the paper. It was so good.
I mean, literally the tiny things that they go into when we meet the psychologist. So we meet Richard Walter, who's the forensic psychologist that is working alongside Frank. And they work together to kind of predict how John would age. And the way that they do this is they take into account really little things. So for starters, they look at that he had a strict upbringing by German parents. They talk about how he was an only child and had a very overprotective mother. He had a degree in accounting but lacked social skills and had a history of losing jobs. So this profile basically revealed that he killed out of anger and retaliation because of his own failure, and that he feels extremely trapped by women, in which I have deal.
They use all of his psychological makeup to decide where his wrinkles would show up. That was really interesting. The whole time they're explaining this to me, the really vain, shitty part of me was like, wait, he has all of these lines because of anxiety? Because if that's the case, I'm fixing to look like the witch in Snow White, like, next year.
I mean, I'm 20 and I already have 5 lines on my forehead. I'm proud of them.
It is what it is.
But one of the things that... this stood out to me. I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. So Frank says that he put the corners of his mouth casting downwards because of the anxiety that he think that he would carry from committing these crimes. And Richard said it's not from any coping of anxiety or anything. It's simply because he's so anxious of getting caught. He's not scared or has any guilt. It's because he's so scared of getting caught.
Yeah, that gave me chills. So it's Sunday, May 1999, and the episode of America's Most Wanted featuring John List premieres. At the end, they run the sculpture with his picture next to it, and this is the one that we were talking about, saying that they're just identical. The sculpture that the forensic sculpturist has made.
He also has a scar behind his right ear that becomes a very big deal because it's basically one of the only things that's like, well, obviously that's him.
Because every villain has to have a scar, right?
Well, totally, right? But it'd be really uncommon for someone to look exactly like him, same height, age, look, and have the same scar.
Also, the forensic psychologist and forensic sculpturist picked these glasses that are literally the exact glasses that John is wearing today.
Oh, so the way that they pick these out, it's so cool. When the picture that we have of the family all together before the murders were committed, he was wearing these glasses that were, I mean, for lack of a better word, like classic 1970s nerd glasses. I mean, the circular with the almost square frame. I don't even know how that works.
Right.
And they replace it. The psychologist basically says that he thinks that he would pick subconsciously these thick, dark frames in order to hide his failure behind. And Frank goes through, they say, over dozens of different frames, and he picks the exact pair that Robert ends up wearing.
Yeah, it was nuts. Frames. So we're in Denver, Colorado when the episode of America's Most Wanted premieres, and a mom and daughter are watching the show, and they recognize the sculpture, and it looks just like their former neighbor, Bob Clark. She says that he was an accountant, a classy dresser, a volunteer at the Lutheran church. The glasses were the final touch, that it looked just like him. He had the scar and wore the same glasses. So they knew it was him. They called the FBI, and they tell them that he moved to Virginia and is now using the name Bob Clark. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So this is what happens in my mind, right? They walk in, and the detective walks up to Bob Clark, and he's like, "Are you Bob Clark?" And Bob's like, "Yeah." And then he says, "Are you John List?" And he says, "No, my name is Robert Clark." But, like, the scar and the fingerprints say otherwise, so sorry, bitch, you're going to jail.
So, you know why they matched the fingerprints? Like, why they had his fingerprints in the system? Because he applied for that gun license a month before.
Ugh.
1 month before. First off, you're dumb enough to get it a month before. Second, you're dumb enough to give your fingerprints. 2, you're dumb enough to do this
That was third.
all.
That was third. Third, you're dumb enough to...
I'd be dumb, but I'm not a serial killer.
I didn't have...
Can I have that on a t-shirt?
Where's Patrick being like, that's my drag name.
That's my drag name.
I might be dumb, but I'm not a serial killer.
I want that on a t-shirt.
All right. So we're at the trial, and the story comes out about how he premeditated this murder of his entire fucking family. That was the only way for him to start a new life and get a clean slate, that's like what they're trying to pitch at us, and I'm just not fucking here for it.
And the footage that we have from the trial is absolutely insane. I would like to add, he just looks dead.
He looks dead. He has nothing behind his eyes.
He does not care about anyone in the whole world.
And also, Audie, these reenactments, I can't, okay? So the reenactment of him walking around shooting his family is horrible. Oh. Like, the dead body pictures were enough, guys. It was enough. I got it.
So yeah, he waited for the kids to leave for school and shot his wife. Then he climbed the stairs to his mother's apartment and shot her. He left his mother upstairs because he was, quote, too weak to take her downstairs.
Bitch didn't try.
Yeah. Or, I'm sorry, you're going down the stairs. Like, up the stairs, I might get. But Dad, like, gravity's on your side.
He had a soccer game to get to. It couldn't get that bloody.
Honestly, as terrible as it is, that probably is it, is that it would be too much of a trail. And honestly, it's probably, like, if you were gonna commit the murders, that'd be the best place anyway, because, like, they're gonna walk in the front door and not just see it. You know, like, I'm not saying you should, but...
I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. He had gotten a new social security number, made new friends with these neighbors, rejoined the Lutheran church, and married the neighbor's friend.
Oof.
The current wife was told that he had no kids and that his first wife died of cancer. She says that she won't believe it, that she loves him, and I'm just like, of course, because anytime someone is a sociopath, the entire family's like, no, they're not. They're the, it's just, it's crazy how these psychopaths can manipulate the people around them.
Yeah. So before the bodies were discovered, we find out kind of how he changed his person, basically. They say that he applied for a new social security number under a new name, which
Can you just do that?
Maybe in the 70s it was different, but yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, you can just do that.
You can just get a new social security. Wait, I lost mine? What the fuck? Like...
Yeah, I don't know how that works. Someone inform us, please. I cannot believe that he just told his new wife that, yeah, my old wife died from cancer, and I've never had any children.
I don't know how you, like, knowing damn well you murdered them.
How do you just... Also, could you imagine this poor woman?
Finding out her husband had a whole other life and killed everyone.
And she's on video saying, I don't think he did this. Da, da, da.
He obviously did it.
When everyone is coming to you and being like, yeah. He literally confessed himself.
So, yeah, guys, that's really where their episode ends. Again, we did a bunch of side googling, so I have some other things that I can tell you about, and Audie's going to read us this letter. Don't watch it. We normally don't say that, but it's literally just a ton of dead bodies. We can't stress that enough, and the reenactment is just don't watch it. We told you about it. We told you everything that you need to know. Here's some shit that I Googled, though, okay? So I was wondering how the school wasn't like, where are these kids after just 2 days, right? Because if I don't have one of my dance students in for 2 or 3 weeks, like, I'm emailing their mom, like, hey, like, what's good,
Mm-hmm.
He had stopped the milk delivery, the mail delivery, and the newspaper delivery to their house. I did find out that, okay? So, and I already told you about how the cops were called twice. It was the drama coach, all of that. 9 months after he murdered everyone in the house, right? The house was burned down.
Oh.
Right.
I mean, good.
So it was ruled as an accident, but like they could never really prove it. From what I researched, if you guys find something else, like tag us in it. We'd love to find out more information when these cases go on further than the research that we've gotten. But apparently it had a signed original Tiffany stained glass at the top of it, and it was worth like $100,000 then, so like $600,000 today, and it just totally burned down. And yeah, it's like a whole new house now, and I bet that shit's haunted as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Another thing that I found out when I was trying to read up on the court cases for this was that the court-appointed psychiatrist testified that John List suffered from obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and that the only 2 options in his mind were welfare or murder. That his entire family was going to be like sent to heaven because of him. And if they went on welfare, that it would be like shameful to the family. And that was like against his religion to let shame be on his family.
Okay, so I more so just have like the worst of the worst.
Of the letter?
Yes.
This is the letter, guys, that he left in the study. So after he cleaned up the blood, went to the soccer game, killed the other kid, cleaned up that, lined them up like a family morgue, put on the classical music, turned the air down, showered, cleaned himself up. He writes this letter in his study for his pastor.
You're not ready.
I'm not.
So I'm not going to read the full letter because it's a full 5 pages. They said that they released the full letter at some point. I wasn't able to find the full thing. I was able to find different clips and quotes from it.
Well, there was a lot to repent for.
So we're just going to read a couple of them to, give you some nightmares. It started off with, I am very sorry to add this additional burden to your work. That's his first sentence. Then, I leave myself in the hands of God, justice and mercy. He wrote that God could have helped him in his time of distress, but apparently he saw fit not to answer my prayers.
What?
So he just decided to take it into his own hands. This makes me think that perhaps it was the best as far as the children's souls are concerned.
Audie's like looking at me every single time she reads a new line of it, and it's just like, ugh.
List said he is assured of making peace with God because of Christ dying even for me. I know that many will only look at the additional years that they could have lived, but if finally there were no longer Christians, what would have been gained? So basically he was like, well, they weren't Christians anymore, so it doesn't matter, because he wouldn't have gained anything from living their lives.
Well, he was saying like that he was afraid that they were going to leave the religion, so he had to kill them before they did. I don't understand it. I'm saying that's what he said.
Also, I'm sure that many will say, how could anyone do such a horrible thing? My only answer is this. It isn't easy, and was only done after much thought.
Guys, I don't know if I stressed this enough. So the whole situation about him being in this financial state of stress was he got laid off from his head position at a really important bank position. And are you ready for this, Audie? He was like still getting up and getting dressed and leaving at 7:15 every morning, acting like he was going to work and not coming home until he would have gotten off because he didn't tell the family that he was laid off for a month.
Oh, that's really sad.
So like he bought the gun and then did that for a month.
Oh. Well, I have more terrifying things from the letter if you want to hear them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but direct quote, didn't want any of them to know even at the last second that I had to do this to them. So that's why he was trying to shoot them in the back of the head. And he also says, because I was wondering this, why did he kill his mom? Because she was like a devout Christian or whatever they were. And he just said he had to kill his mother because the other deaths would have been a tremendous shock to her.
No shit.
Yeah, because, like, dying isn't.
Well, like, you murdered your family. People should be shocked.
Liz said that he had planned to kill them all on Saints' Day, November 1st, an appropriate day for them to get to heaven. But the day passed because his travel plans were delayed.
What?
Devin and I are just staring at each other.
We're just staring at each other like...
So, hold on. What way are we going here? Were your travel plans just delayed, or did you actually give a fuck about doing this for your God? Like, what?
Which one was it?
What is going on?
I feel like people are going to say it's both, but I don't even want it to be both. So yeah, guys, he was convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder. He denied direct responsibility by saying that, direct quote, I feel that because of my mental state at the time, I was unaccountable for what happened. I ask all affected by this for their forgiveness, understanding, and prayer. The judge said, John M.L. List is without remorse and without honor. And you know she slammed that gavel.
Yeah, she said,
book 'em. He also tried to argue that the letter could not be accepted into court because it was a confession to the pastor and was going to be some type of religious exemption, but the judge was like, nah.
Well, it wasn't. Maybe if it was a verbal confession in a church.
Whatever.
And even so, I don't actually know. If you confess, no. Actually, you can't. I remember, I Googled this at one point. Did you know, if you confess murder to, like, a Catholic priest, like in, I'm forgetting what that's called.
The box thing?
Yeah, the box thing. I'm sorry, we're not Catholic. But in the box thing, they can't tell the police. Like, they're not allowed to tell anyone. You can confess to murder, and they can't tell anyone.
I feel like that should be a loophole.
No, I remember because I was watching an episode of Law & Order SVU, heyo, and that happened. Like, that happened to a pastor, and they went to, they went to somebody in their church that was a police officer and gave them, like, a tip for it.
If you're a pastor and you're carrying that, I don't judge you if you go to the police. In fact, I encourage it.
Yeah, no, please don't keep that a secret.
Tell someone.
Anybody.
Tell someone.
That's how you end an episode.
Oh my God, guys. I'm so happy this is over. This episode was terrible. I saw so many dead bodies. I never want to talk about this again.
Yeah,
Fuck John. Guys, if you have been enjoying this time with us, please give us a review on iTunes. It really helps us out. You can find us on Instagram. We are at Serial Sistas. That's Serial Sistas. Sistas with 3 A's. Sistaas. Audie, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram as Audie_Dennis and TikTok as Awkward Audie.
I am on Instagram and TikTok as Devin Dennis XOXO. Give us a shout out on our personal platforms if you are from Serial Sistas. We would love to give you a special honor or whatever for hanging out with us in these scary, bloody times. Guys, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Serial Sistas. That's Sistas with 3 A's. Sistaas. And we will be back next week with another terrible tale to tell you guys about. We'll be doing our makeup and murder over FaceTime every morning, and we'll pick a new one and a good one to talk about next week. We just finished Brittany. Brittany is probably my favorite episode that we have done so far.
You know there's also a conservatorship over Lindsay Lohan?
I did, and I wanted to talk to you about, okay, the after party. Yeah. Is that everything?
Yes, that's everything. Serial Sisters!
Serial Sisters! We gotta figure out what we're gonna do there.
For now, what's that?
It's that, yeah.
I didn't mention it because it wasn't important, but literally the bottom of his letter is P.S. Mother is in the hallway in the attic, 3rd floor. She was too heavy to move. You just end with that?
I'm so glad I didn't stop recording. I can't do it if you're wheezing.
Air leaving balloon.
Was that your lower third or your captions? Here's what's bad. Audie, you're crying. God, and you know what sucks is I always edit this shit out because it's not funny to anybody else.
So
but we think it's so funny. Oh,
because you just
like, but that you had to be here.
I'm not trying to shit on dead people, but we left off on the 3rd floor. They find a 5th body.
Can you hear me opening my candy?
Yes.
Wait.
Yes, we can. We're taking a break apparently. Well, you act like we're not gonna hear you crunching that. I gotta wait. Like, some loud ass nerds, dude.
No,
They know, like, it's not chocolate or something where it's kind of soft. These are nerds. I can hear them from over here. I'm like 4 feet away from you.
No, I can't even enjoy it.
Good. Say it.
I threw off your groove.
Yeah, you really did. You
made it like
a lava, and you stomped on it, and you just gave no fucks.
You made it like 1,000 bars in without saying it.
Yeah, and then you mentioned it. I could have made 1,000 more, but now I'm going to constantly think about it.
Well, I've said like 1,000 times.
I'm aware. And I don't say anything about it, do I?
Tell me. I sound ignorant. Fucking soggy cereal reason, but whatever. That was cute.
I was trying to warn you.
Nice. You sound like Mickey Mouse.
We sneeze the same. We have both sneezed like that since we were small children, and I don't know why.